Hi and welcome to the first video here on Morbid history in 2024. And today we delve into a crime of passion in Sweden in the 1800s. Without further ado, here we go.
It all started in 1881. Scandal, infidelity and murder. Elsie Nilsdotter Åberg. As you can see, she was born in the 8th of October 1846, dead the 25th of January 1882. But buried right underneath here in 2009 is her head. So, how did we come to this? Let's get to it.
One cold evening in 1881, 28th of November, the master of the Monson Farm in Bessingemordet, southern Sweden, was cancelled from his life subscription by getting himself shot through an open window. He was cancelled by a rifle that was filled with buckshots, and half his upper part was turned to mush. In the room with him was his only child, his sleeping daughter Anna, who woke up by the ruckus. The maids came rushing in and helped Anna out of the room. And that was the start of a sensational crime and trial. So, the victim, Ola Monson. He was the master of a farm. He lived there together with his wife Elsie Nilsdotter and their only child, Anna. They had been married for 14 years. Their daughter at this time, like I said, she was 12. But the last few years of their marriage had been pretty loveless, and they did not even sleep in the same room. It was said that Elsie was a harsh woman. Ola was a kind and he was very devoted to the church, so most of his time went to doing churchly business. And thus he, of course, needed help at the farm and had a lot of employees doing the hard labor, while he sat in a room, mostly reading the Bible. Nothing wrong with reading the Bible, of course, these were the times. He was seen as a very good and upstanding man, and reading the Bible was the thing to do in the 1800s. Also living at the Monson Farm were the help, of course. These were a mother and daughter duo who helped with general household chores and stuff like that. They lived on a little building on the farm, as you did back then. They also had a farmhand who came back and forth. He was the son of the daughter of the duo. He had been born out of wedlock and didn't have a lot of things going for him. Per's mom was actually so poor that she had to let Per grow up in a very derelict little cottage with his uncle Jacob. Jacob wasn't a rich man by any means either. He had many children and a wife and did odd labor around the village, around the area, but they were starving. everyone was pretty much starving in Sweden during these times, because we had had a few years of misgrowth and yeah. So yeah, these were pretty much the people involved in the story. For years before the cancellation, Per had been working as extra help, as a farmhand, until when he was a bit older and was drafted into the military, where he stayed a few years. During this time, they had to get another farmhand help man, and they hired another Per Persson. Everyone was named Per in the 1800s in Sweden. I don't know how many times I've made crime or read about crimes in Sweden, and like half the people are named Per.
My name's Per, and so I put that manly hand in mine.
Oh well. Either way, they had a new Per at the farm. Things seemed to go well with the new Per until the old Per Sjöstedt, in 1881 came back from his military service. He was now 23 and looking for possibilities in life. He was a hungry young man clutching for some kind of destiny. But his destiny for now was to go back to the Monson Farm. In order to do this, of course, the Monsons had to fire the other Per, which they did by accusing him of trying to do things to the barn animals. So instead of being formally accused, he took his leave, which gave way to Per to come back to work at the Monson Farm with his mom. And this was then the situation in 1881 when Ola Monson, 37, got himself cancelled. The law was quickly there, doing their thing. Who would have wanted to remove Ola, a respected man, from this earth?
Hermit Hustle Intermezzo. Like, comment and subscribe. It helps with the algorithm. Thank you very much. Mwah!
Elsie, the wife of Ola, quickly pointed the finger at the old farmhand, the old Per, that he did it out of anger for his firement and of course the very bad accusations that came with it. He had a solid alibi though, and the police quickly let him go. They also had one other thing, a very important thing. They had found some very large shoe prints on the crime scene outside the window. They were abnormal. They were very, very large. They took a paper and cut out the shape and size and went ahead around like the prince in Cinderella, from door to door to door, trying to find the owner of the shoes, which they finally did. It was a shoemaker, and this shoemaker had borrowed a pair of shoes that fit the paper, exactly to the T, to none other than the impoverished Jakob Eld, uncle of Per and brother to the maid and son to the other maid at Monson's farm. He was quickly secured and he started yapping as soon as they got him into jail. And what a story he had. he said that he had been recruited by his nephew Per Sjöstedt and the wife of Ola, Elsie Nilsdotter. They had promised him not only work, but a little house on the Monson Farm grounds, and just the thought of a better life for him and his family. He accepted the offer. Elsie had actually been questioned and released very early on because she also had an alibi. She had been with Per Sjöstedt at a maltstuga, which was a house that was kept warm with an oven fire to dry food and malt for drink. And they had been there, seen by the locals during the night of Ola's demise. But now Jakob says that that was just a ploy to get any kind of suspicion off of them. Rumors had been circulating for a while that Per, 23, and Elsie Nilsdotter, 34, had connected a bit more than you should. They were having an affair. They too were taken quickly into prison. There, all three of them started pointing fingers at each other. Per said that Elsie was the mastermind. Elsie said that Per was the mastermind. Of course. But a conclusion was, at least, that they had hired Jakob, Eld, the very, very, very poor uncle of Per, to do the dirty work while they were away, getting themselves a good alibi. Jakob had gone so far that he had actually gone and gotten himself a pair of boots way too big for him to throw the police off. And just to think that if he hadn't done that, maybe they wouldn't even have found out about it. It's hard to really know who was the real mastermind of Per or Elsie, but we know that they had an affair and they were doing things, naughty things, and the village knew about it. So Per was at least hoping to become the new master of the Monson Farm. Elsie, blinded by her new boy toy and maybe dissatisfaction with her husband, was pushing for the whole thing. Maybe they just together were dreaming of a different life. And poor Jakob, he sure was dreaming of a better life for both him and his family. Either way, the whole thing went very quickly, and already in January of the next year, 1882, they were all three sentenced to cancellation. Newspaper articles from that time described the spectacle of it all. Elsie was crying and begging for her life. Jakob and Per solemnly cried their way out of the courtroom. Elsie's sentence was not to be, though, because just a few days after, the 28th of January 1882, she cancelled herself by tying together two handkerchiefs and hanging it from a hook in the wall of her cell. Neither Per or Jakob got the cancellation done. Their sentences were changed to life in prison, which meant that they were of course released after a few years have passed. And in 1908 they were both free men. Jakob Eld returned to his impoverished family and dearly departed by a hard life, I'm guessing in 1928. Per Sjöstedt, he lived in Bessinge. He returned there after being released and stayed there until he was 91 years old and passed in 1949. After Elsie did the cancellation by her own means, she would not rest for over 100 years. Her body was taken to the prison cemetery, unmarked grave, but not before the prison doctor went ahead and took her head. He wanted to keep it for science. He wanted to study it, racial biology and all that stuff, which were, yeah. There's this story that he actually put the head out and let the crows eat away all the flesh on it. And then he cut it into 2 parts and studied it. Yeah. Then at some point he gave it away to some school, I think, and then he went to a museum, some private person, and Elsie's skull would travel up and down Sweden until 2005, when the Swedish government started to look through all that. They sent her skull to a museum down in southern Sweden, and there it stayed for another few years in a little box. Until they too then decided that they would send her home to Bessinge and give her head a proper burial as far away from Ola's grave as possible, though. So yeah, that was the story of the Bessinge murder case. What do you think? Let me know down below.
And thus we come here to the murder victim's grave that is shaped like a tree trunk. It's very hard to read, but it says Ola Monson, and his birth in 1844, death in 1881, and also dead by a murderer's hand.
Thanks for watching this first ramble of 2024. If you have any thoughts or comments about the video, please let me know down below. I love reading what you have to say. I mean, I did research and watch movies and read I read 2 books and all that. I do this. It takes a lot to make a video, and I love to get some feedback. And if you enjoyed it thoroughly, please consider donating at my Ko-fi. I'll take any tips because I'm a poor hermit. And I'm still not monetized, so you can't send super thanks, so Ko-fi is a good choice. I also sell some hermit crafts there. It's a new year, and I hope everyone has good things in store. Stay amazing, stay hydrated, and stay morbid, and I'll see you very, very, very soon. Bye bye!